Tonight, for the first time since the pandemic hit, Team SAS-C reunite as Jimmy C hosts a very special edition of the C-Section podcast with his special guest, the South African superstar, Steve Miller. Hear him open up for the very first time about his trials and tribulations in the professional wrestling business and beyond. It's a brand new episode of the C-Section podcast, and it begins right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wrestling fans of all ages, it's time for the segment you've all been waiting for. Coming to you from self-isolation in an undisclosed location, it's time for the C-Section with Jimmy C!
Like uniforms.
Man, I hope that mine's probably got some crinkles and shit on it. It's been a few months since I've whipped this out, I think. So,
dude, the old one, I didn't realize when I took it out because I was going to just do it as a display thing, has like so many iron crinkles. Like, this is like our first shirt.
I know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Dude, I look back on the stuff that we've done, and we've done a lot of reminiscing, had a lot of time to do a lot of reminiscing over the past several weeks. You shared a clip on Instagram the other day and across Facebook as well of the hype video to our tag match.
And that was probably hands down everything we've done. Like, and I don't know, I don't want this to come the wrong way, but everything we've done together has by far been my favorite time in wrestling. And other than my match with Kim, who people know as Kurt Barron, which is our debut, I think. Yeah, it was our debut.
It was, yeah.
Where I came out without you, and then I called you out, and people were not expecting that, but they were.
Came out with the toothpicks, and little South African flags.
I was extremely disappointed that I accepted to have you by my side, but at the same time, deep down, I was extremely excited. Other than that promo I shared, which was, for people who don't know, was you and me taking on Ben and Havoc, Ben and Harry. I don't know. I'm just going to say their names and whatnot. In a sort of manager and wrestler tag match after what was about 4 months storyline, I reckon. Maybe
it was. They debuted in July. Long Live the King. It was another HQ show that they did, but we already knew when they were coming in, and I was talking about this with Sean. This is why I think the story worked out so perfectly. Not to jump ahead a little bit, but I thought the story worked out so good because we knew what the payoff was going to be at the end. We knew that, all right, in December, we're working with these guys. We've got several months to do all this. How are we going to get there? To me, that was the best way to do things.
And then literally, kudos to the guys at Riot City having trust in us. I think us four pretty much had at least 90 to 100% creative control on the storyline.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And that was the best thing because, yourself, we've all got ideas, but, take your hat off to yourself, man. Like, you've got some great creative ideas wrestling, and I know you help a lot of the other guys out as well. But Ben and Harry, they had some awesome ideas as well, creatively, especially, I suppose, you managers aren't just managers. You're so much more than that. You're like awesome with creativity, awesome. And you guys are avid wrestling fans as well. You've been around so long. You're not just a fan that just wants the pops and you don't really understand what goes behind it.
I'm still a baby.
What's that, man?
What's that?
What did you say?
I said I'm still a baby.
Right. Well, you guys, you actually understand like how to build that story. So when you spoke to us, the wrestlers, and we spoke to you, we spoke the same language, even though you guys were managers. You didn't just come out and look good. You came out and you knew what to do. And that's why I think the match itself, even though you've done a little bit of training yourself, Ben's never taken a bump. I gave Ben his first bump of all time. You know what I mean? Like, just to have you guys who don't really wrestle or know how to wrestle be able to play such a pivotal role and such an awesome storyline. It was incredible, man. Everything was awesome.
Like, I love doing the stuff with the whole GMC gimmick and, working with Kurt Barron and everything like that. But for me, though, personally, and I was talking about this with Sean for the previous interview, how we never envisioned ourselves as wrestlers. We always thought, we're going to be commentators, managers, ring announcers. So to have that chance especially alongside a guy like you, man. Like, I couldn't thank you and Havoc enough for the way you guys controlled that and worked that in the ring wise. Like, yeah, like you said, and thank you so much. I appreciate it when you give us props, like myself and Ben, about coming up with interviews and the creative side of things. But when it comes to in ring, we're way out of our depth. We don't have that experience.
The thing is, though, man, there's two things I want to talk about there. One is Sean, but we'll talk about him after, because he had a pivotal role in this as well on the side, more so than I think anyone probably realized. But the thing with that was cool with the dynamic with you guys as managers, but then Havoc as well. So Havoc sort of, he's been wrestling for about 20 years now, I reckon. And I first met him probably about 8, 9 years ago. He sort of was at the point now where he just felt, stagnant, doing the same thing week in, week out. And he's sort of gone out and wanted to do some different things. And he's come in, and joined us in this little gimmick that we're doing. And I think seeing the passion from you and Ben, and then that rubs off onto me, and I was pretty hyped up with what we were doing anyway. It was really nice to see someone like him come out of his shell massively and have a smile on his face again. And he was so invested in the storyline as well, to the point where, when we're trying to work something out, trying to get 4 guys who all work and stuff like that to work out, the same time for all 4 of us to be in the room at the same time, it was hard. And we all sort of started making sacrifices. And to see someone like him really go above and beyond was really awesome to see, man, especially given, he was coming into Riot City for a different edge, and he got it, you know what I mean?
It's his first time in RCW. And he's working with guys that, someone who's been around for only a couple of years, yourself, who's only recently just come back at that point. So it's a lot of new territory for him as well. But to be so, gracious and open to ideas was fantastic. That's the best kind of people to work with. When you've got 4 guys with, and again, wrestling's an egotistical business. It's always going to be. You're going to have to have a high opinion of yourself, but also not take yourself too seriously. It's a double-edged sword in that respect. But to be able to get 4 guys in a room, like you said, sit down and go over, all right, this is our ideas. We're going to bring them to the table and go, all right, that's good, but it would work better if we did it this way. No, that's crap.
Each other, weren't we?
Yeah, we were working with each other for quite a long time.
There was plenty of ideas that, you would pitch, and I'd be like, Jimmy, that's stupid. And you would listen to my reason, and you would agree with me or disagree with me. And then you disagree and give me a counter, and then I'd listen to you. And that was really good. The communication, Ben and Havoc would come up with ideas. But our communication as a whole was like, no one was really, well, screw you then, and walk out of the room, which you sort of see a little bit in wrestling. We actually listened to each other, it was unique, man. It was to have 4 people work so well together. I mean, Havoc better not retire before I get to go again with him, I reckon, because I had such a good time with him.
Mate, I think he's the kind of guy that, once RCW boots back up, I will be very surprised if he's not in that RCW title picture.
Oh, man, he just works a solid match. He's been around for a while. He understands the basics. And he'll be the first to say that he's got no charisma or anything like that. But with Ben by his side and Havoc's ability just to be Havoc, I think he actually gets more of a reaction that he gives himself credit for. And then you have guys like us, especially you, and you've taken me out of my shell massively, that are so over the top, and then Ben's over the top, but then Havoc's just Havoc. We brought them up, they brought us there, and I don't know, man, it was just fireworks. It was great. It was
the perfect mixture of, classic good versus evil.
Yeah, that's it.
Those are the best wrestling stories. And Ben is just so annoying. Like, that's coming from me. I'm a pretty annoying guy, but Ben is so annoying. And I mean that in the best way possible.
You're not annoying, except when you say you'll be there, you're there about an hour and a half later.
Yeah, I have this, for those who don't know, I have this tendency of being late to everything. I'll be late to my own funeral.
It's no secret that when guys at wrestling are like, oh, Jimmy told me he'll be here, said time, I always say, guys, add like 30 to 45 minutes, and then you've got a ballpark of the time he'll be there. I learned that very quickly.
It's sad, but it's so true. If you tell me
my time, and you ruined that, but it's okay. I've worked you out.
When myself, you, and Havoc and Ben were doing a promo at one stage, you knew how I was like with time, and me and Havoc were talking. I said, you know what you should do is tell me that the promo starts at 6, when really we have to be there by 7. So if
Right.
it starts at 6, I'll be there by 7.
I'm actually surprised we got this podcast going about 30 minutes before we planned.
Being in ISO and being in quarantine and having nothing to do really frees up your time.
Yeah, right.
It's funny.
Hey, let's talk about Sean, because you said you spoke to Sean before. And I think Sean had we won't talk about this storyline too much longer. Otherwise, it's all we'll talk about.
Yeah,
Sean,
it's no secret, just quickly, this is a lot of what we put into in RCW. Like we did work with each other, and we will touch on that, how we started as a group and all that. But the storyline that we did with Havoc and Ben is a big chunk of what we've done together. So
it's only half of our journey, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say about 60% of the journey has been that. But to your point with Sean was able to come in at the very start of when we started as a group. The managed at first sight, which we're going to touch into as well. I can't wait to get into that. So many different elements and pieces went into that, how that came about. But with Sean, he was able to help me out a lot when I first started. I was mentioning to him there was 3 guys that took me under their wing. It was Josh, late great Josh Armour, Wolf Dog, and Sean himself. So to have those 3 guys Sean had only been around for a few years, but he had a lot of experience in fields that I'm interested in outside of wrestling, like radio, journalism. So that was great to have that aspect of it. For you, what has Sean meant as far as when we were doing our thing? Like, what do you think he contributed to it, and what was it like been working with him?
Man, my first experience with Sean just before we actually started working, when I came back, and I'm sure a lot of the guys have their own self-doubt and stuff like that when it comes to wrestling and whatnot. He was really good at sort of helping my confidence. I had 4 years off wrestling or so, and I came back, and he helped me out heaps with that. Always been that giving you the good constructive feedback is the word I'm looking for. He's not just blowing smoke up your ass. He gives you good constructive feedback, but he's got a lot of passion. He helps you, find the really good things you're doing, things you need to work on, etc. But he does it in a really good way. He doesn't bring you down. He perks you up in a good way. But when it comes to this storyline, I was sort of in a position where I'd come back as this, typical heel, and I just did arsehole things, but I wasn't really an arsehole, and deep down I'm quite over the top. And what he really helped with was telling the story of the transition of my heel sort of character into my babyface character. But he also gave me the confidence to do that, because that transition for me was huge, getting out of my comfort zone. And I really just had this one side of me that I just really wanted to just break away and just be me and do whatever. And he sort of, I don't know if it was just, the old chit chat at promos in between takes, or I don't know if it was just, if he would message me or I'd message him. And obviously you had a huge part to play, but if we're talking specifically about Sean, he just gave me the reassurance to just go with how it feels, if that makes sense. I think when it comes from a storyline point of view, his commentary and the way he involved himself in promos, and his smarts as well, with in between takes talking about, oh, that's cool because that now shows the dimension of this and that. It just reassures everything you're doing. So he had a huge part. He was that piece of that 8-piece puzzle. You know what I mean? Like, he was one piece that was really vital, and I think he had way more to do with it than he realizes. Like, his comments on Instagram, Facebook, and the way he gets into character here and bees himself there. I don't know really how else to word it, man.
I get what you mean. It's there that I was mentioning this to Sean as well. The commentator's role is a soundtrack. It's a soundtrack to what's going on in the ring. They paint that picture over the TV, or whatever they may be watching on YouTube, whatever the platform is. But they help paint that picture for the fan, like a new fan that's come in. They're able to tell a quick summarization of the character without the character having to do much in the ring.
Exactly.
So it was a very vital role in the beginning of Team SAS-C. But even before we were actually, Team SAS-C.
Yeah.
And I love this story, and I bring it up to you quite a fair bit. The time we first met properly was a RCW live event, and a lot of people don't know my actual day job was working for Dodo. And you decided to go off a bit of a rant. Describe exactly what we talked about when we first properly met.
Well, I mean, I had a business back in the day, and I remember my dad came to me and he said, "Oh, there was this really good guy in the mall, and he had these great electricity deals with Dodo." And I don't know if we can talk about this, but whatever. No, there's no wall here, right?
Mate,
And,
no,
I was like, "Oh,
ripping it
cool,
down.
awesome, sweet. It's not your typical electricity and setup. It's a bit more month to month." And anyway, long story short, I signed up with Dodo, and then I got a phone call saying that it was commercial and they didn't do commercial, and this was someone else. And I don't know. Cut a long story short, I think he sold us just to maybe get his numbers up, but he couldn't actually help me. And when I met you, I think the first thing I said, or something like along the lines was, and you might remember it more clearer, they came up to you and said, "Oh, Jimmy, you're the guy that works for Dodo." And then I went, boom.
It was just like a personal attack. It's just like, "Oh, you're the face of that company that screwed me over all those years ago, aren't you?" And it's like, "Yeah, great way to break the ice, Steve."
It was like, I didn't really actually care that much. I think maybe the way it came across was a little bit boisterous, and I don't know what your takeaway from that was.
No, it was just funny. Like, both of us not really knowing who the other was, and just sort of breaking that ice. And like, you were just so, just forward with everything. And I thought, this bloke's like, he's not going to hide anything. He's going to tell it like it is, which I appreciated. But it's just funny to me, like, it's like, "Oh, you're the guy who works for that company." And then I said to you, "Look, Dodo's never done, I won't touch too much on, the ins and outs of Dodo. That's not what we're here for, but they do residential electricity. They've never done business." And I try to explain that to you. It's like, "Oh man, you still built so slided." It's like, I was not with the company at the time, and it's so good. But from there,
I think the thing for me is I've worked for service industry for quite a few years, and I'm the sort of guy that if I go into a retail shop and you can see I'm waiting for you, right? And it's at customer service, whatever. And this has actually happened to me, where they literally just don't even acknowledge you're there. They don't even say, "Hey, hang on a second, I'm busy. I'll be with you in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever." There's no communication. You're just standing there. And then after, literally this happened to me, I won't name where, after about 10 minutes, I said, because I was desperate for this new video game. Anyway, I said, "Sorry, are you busy?" Just looked at me. It was like looking, they were just like down, and they looked up. They looked down. They didn't say anything. I walked out, and I swear I'd never shop there again. I probably will. But the reality is, I've just got such high standards when it comes to service.
well, dude, both of us have been in sales for quite some time, so we do judge people more than others when we're at the shop, because I don't know, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, like, especially in the position that I was in with Dodo at the time, that if you're good enough, I may hire you right there and then. Like, you never know, you might leave that impression of people. So I guess the advice is, always do your best when you're at work, because you never know who's watching. And it's the same with wrestling too. You never know who's going to catch that glimpse. You've got these people who, they saw a tape, let's just say William Regal was out in God knows where, watched a guy, got back to Triple H and said, "Oh, I reckon you should hire this kid." You never know. You never know. That's just a wrestling example, but you never know who's watching, so you always apply yourself 110% whatever they be doing.
Exactly. But I mean, to cut a long story, which has gone quite long, shorter, I suppose, is I broke the ice pretty hard by taking one situation with someone completely different, and I pinballed it straight onto you.
It was brilliant. But we'd known each other from there. We'd gone to RCW 200, where you were tagging with Jet Armstrong, and I was on my way out. In storyline, like, I wrapped up the whole, GMC stuff. Brad Smythe kicked me in the face. It's a great program, like one of my favorites. After that, I had a couple of months hiatus doing a lot of background work for social media. How am I going to come back? What's going to be the situation? I can't be the general manager anymore. Am I going to be a good guy? Am I going to be a bad guy? What's the story going to be? Me and Chris Basso, along with the rest of the guys down there at Flip Flop, what are we going to do? Finally, Cree mentions to me, "All right, we've got this idea. We want to bring you back with Steve Miller." What was it like for you to hear that news for the first time, that, all right, you yourself have even admitted you were, let's call a spade, floundering a little bit in that sort of, mid-card of not having a character, not knowing where you're going, not necessarily having a gimmick, or feeling like your personality wasn't getting a chance to shine through. When you got that news that you're going to be paired with this kid that from a conversation about Dodo, What was that sort of like for you?
Man, to be honest, it was so weird. On the external, I was a bit hesitant, nervous, I suppose, because as much as I was stale, boring, floundering, it was a comfort zone. And I'd only been back probably about a year, maybe a little bit less than a year by that point. But then on the other end, deep down, I knew I needed something, and I knew that I had a lot more to offer, and I still feel the same. I feel like I haven't even started, man. But on the inside, I feel like I had a lot more to offer. And before having 4 years off, I wrestled for about 3 or 4 years, and I just felt like I never really hit my stride with what I could be. And they always said that a lot of the time with wrestling is it's an over-exaggerated version of yourself. And what I realized very quickly is you and I are very similar in the sense of getting over-exaggerated, silly, and just being ourselves. And I think I was sort of eager to see, like, I mean, the way it got pitched to me at first was you were going to do this managed at first sight with me, and then you were going to go to the next person and the next person and the next person. And whoever you click with was who you want to be managing. And I remember after the first story, I just went, first promo or whatever, I went home thinking to myself, like, that was the most fun I've had wrestling, and I see an opportunity there. And I remember messaging you or talking to you in person. I can't remember saying, Jimmy, I don't know how you feel, man, but like, do you reckon we could do more of that? And like, I was so nervous that you were going to say no, and it was going to be like that first rejection when you're a teenager. But you said you felt the same, and I remember, like, on the inside, I just like exploded with joy because you were on the same page, and from day one, it's been like that, same page. You know what I mean?
And you were able to interject some of your ideas as well. It felt like a collaborative process right off the bat. Even though I may have come in with the bigger picture with the whole managed at first sight, like, this is where it's going to go. And I even said to you, let's see how this goes, because if we do this well enough, they won't break us up. And that's exactly
Exactly.
You know, we came in with an idea that, and I've been very upfront with you about this as well. We came in with the idea that was able to reflect on what's happening in pop culture. And I think that's what me and you have sort of clicked on. It's like, let's focus on what's going on now and try and stay, you know, there's a big word in wrestling, it's called relevancy. And it's like, it's in life as well, but you've got to stay relevant. You've got to stay relevant. I think it's overused, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. You've got to be able to look at what's going on, look at how the business is evolving, how the world is evolving, and capitalize on that. And I think me and you have been very, very good in that. Describe that first managed at first sight, though, when we were actually getting started and we were doing all that like crazy stuff. I think I was following you around the place trying to get. What was that like for you? What was that whole experience?
In a weird way, it felt real.
Yeah.
It felt like you were legit a guy that was trying to crack back into a business, and you legit saw me as an opportunity. And you were legit annoying me, trying to get me to say yes. And it felt, the promos, although that was a story we were telling, it felt real. Like when we were filming those promos, especially the second one with the marriage ceremony, it felt like it was real life for that 2 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And when we filmed the promos, it just all felt real, man. And I don't know, man, like deep down, I knew it was going to go somewhere. I don't know how else to describe it. The way it felt was, this is awesome and it feels real. And I think that's probably why the promos hit off, was because if we believe it, then other people are going to believe it. We didn't have to fake anything. We didn't have to stage anything. And most of our promos, we didn't even script, man. You know as well as I do, the best promos we do, just off the cuff. We can't plan shit. We have an idea, but we can't plan lines. You know what I mean? And I think it just felt so real, and that's what was told, and that's why people believed in us so quick, you know.
We were able to look at, okay, here's where we need to end up, and I'll just do a quick comparison with the storyline we did with Ben and Havoc, just for context, is that we had the end game. This is where it needs to go. How do we get there? And I think that's what we are still really good at. Again, not to kiss our own asses throughout this whole interview, but we just have so much fun working together. We were able to.
I haven't even started. That's the biggest thing.
We've got still so much to do, and we're going to talk about what sort of we had in the pipeline, what our goals were before this all started, how that sort of changed. But when we were doing the managed at first sight thing, we looked at it as okay, this is where we've got to go. How can we get there? And the way that you were able to open up your gym at the time. the managed ceremony was absolutely brilliant. It's one of the most fun things I've ever done. Not just in life, dude.
It was so good, man. And then, like, again, it just all felt like such a hoot. You know, that was late at night, that one as well, I reckon. That was probably 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, and I just didn't want to go home. I just wanted to do it.
We had Sean and Kurt Barron down there. We were, again, able to bring guys on board that we trusted and that we knew that could provide, you know, not just only that we're friends with, but could also provide that entertainment, that comedic relief, you know, that seriousness when it needed to be. So to have guys like that to be able to work with, a lot like Ben and Havoc in the sense of these are guys that have their heads screwed on right. They're willing to work with us. They're willing to not only listen to our ideas, but share their ideas as well. And that's the best kind of environment to work in. For you, because I know that we've talked about it a fair bit about confidence and when you get your confidence back, what was the moment for you where you thought, all right, I know that this is clicking. I know that we've got something here and I'm fully confident. I know that I can take this where it needs to go.
Man, to be honest, there's probably like several dimensions with regards to the confidence that me coming out of my shell a little bit, breaking away from that traditional boring floundering type heel character was actually the first match we had, and that was against Kurt Barron. What we had there was quite unique. To put it into context for people listening, at the time I was a heel bad guy and Kurt was a heel bad guy, and we clicked outside of the ring and we wanted to work together in the ring. But the thing is, you don't really see a heel versus heel match very often, and if you do, it's usually shit. It's just horrible. You just like, I've seen maybe one good one, and I think that was Edge and Randy Orton on Raw many years ago. But still, even then, it didn't really have that it factor to it.
Tough spot.
And sorry,
a tough spot.
Yeah,
exactly. Really behind, you know, anyone in particular.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, we were building a little bit of traction, I suppose, on social media just by going at each other as a bit of a joke. And people were biting into that. People didn't realize we were joking, but we were. I'm sure a lot of people did, but they went along with it anyway. And then they actually gave us the opportunity to work together. And that sort of tied in perfectly because at the same time is when you and I started, and I was unsure whether I wanted you. Kurt was your old client. And it all just worked really well. And I remember rocking up to the venue on the day, and I just said to Kurt, I was like, man, I've watched like all these heel versus heel matches, and there's not really that many that I really like, and I think we should do this and that. And from the Edge and Orton one, we should do this and that. And he goes, Steve, I like that. We'll do that. But what we got to do is really break out of our characters. Now, to put it in context, Kurt is a 6'7" guy that weighs like 125 kilos. He's a big guy, right? Well, at the time anyway.
That's great.
This guy basically is the biggest guy in the company. And he goes, we got to be comedic, and we've got to use the ref as the face, essentially. And I thought to myself, this is genius. So if I look like a bit of an idiot, but you look like a bit of an idiot, it plays into that heelness of, you know, you can mess up and it's cool. But if we both do it, we're not one-upping each other. Like it doesn't go, oh, you know what I mean? Like we're both on the same page. And then the ref looks like the face. And we basically brought some comedy into it, but not too much. And we built it through the match to have a blow-off at the end of the match. And at the end of the match, basically the ref had enough. We were both on the ropes, knackered. The ref decided he's going to grab the rope, throw the rope around, and we were going to freaking, you know, get knackered from it. And the crowd blew off. We had people backstage.
That spot, dude. Like being on the outside for that and watching that just all unfold. Oh, magic.
Bro, and the thing is, that was the moment. Because when the crowd, that was the loudest I'd ever heard the crowd for me personally. Because I was always like neither here or there. And probably one of the loudest pops I've heard ever at a Riot City show. It's probably up there in top 5 or 10 or whatever. To have guys backstage that were downstairs going, shit, that sounded like we were right next to it. That moment that I landed on the canvas, holding my neck, like holding my gonads because I'd been knackered. I tried not to just like beam. You can see it now on my face, man. Like I just knew we did it. We did our job. We've done it. We have ticked that box. We have proven people wrong because people had their doubts about that match. Now, we went on to be like in the top 5 for match of the year. We didn't win it, but it was that moment when I hit the canvas that I knew that this was something, and I was breaking out, and that was huge. Like, I felt like, I remember going backstage and actually saying to Rocky Monero that I feel like at that moment, my level of understanding of psychology just took a jump. And yeah, I've always got shit to learn. I've got so much to learn. But at that particular point, I went from here to here. That was one of those pivotal things. And then confidence went up, everything went up, and then just went from there. That moment.
That thrives under pressure, man. And that's what I sort of admire about you, is the way that you're able to look at a challenge like that and go, okay, in a normal situation, what would you do? What would you do? Okay, you've got 2 bad guys. Who's the crowd going to cheer for? Who's the crowd going to cheer for out of 2 heels? You put the spotlight on the ref, which, quick story about Michael that night, poor bugger. So he does that spot. He ends up doing a spot with me later on the match where I come in after he's done the rope shake, and he puts me on my ass. Yeah, it's just pop after pop after pop until we lead it to the finish. And that was fantastic. And, you know, we'll talk about a lot with wrestling being levels. You know, you go up and try and maintain that pop, or if not, get a bit louder to lead to the big climax at the end. Later on that night, there was the tag match main event of Armstrongs versus Gods and Monsters. It was Nikki and Grim. And Nick's gone, swung the chair off of Grim's back. And the chair, this shows you the strength of the chair, or just how hard Nick was able to hit him with it. It's flown off the seat and whacked Michael straight in the face. Oh, it was brilliant.
What a night for Michael. From a high to a low.
The ref has gotten over more than anyone. But it's stuff like that I love about wrestling. But for us to be able to go in there, prove a point, and say, hey, look, we can do everything. You give us a heel versus heel situation, we can knock that out of the park. And from there, we were able to sort of put that wheels in motion to do a babyface turn, because that's where it's ultimately leading to. And even Chris Basso said, all right, you're heels now. We thought we would have stayed heel for a lot longer than we did.
The crowd didn't let us, man.
And the crowd didn't let us. No, they wanted to see us succeed.
I think, I'm trying to remember which match it was. I think it was a house show, a live show. And I think it was me versus Antivirus, who was technically a babyface at the time, and I was the heel. And they just started cheering for me. And I don't know, I just feel like that was probably the start. I mean, it was almost like every match, it was like, in the beginning with Kurt Barron, it was like cheer, boo, cheer, boo, cheer, boo, because it was heel versus heel. But then even against Grim, I remember, I started getting cheers. And every match, I got more cheers and more cheers. And I think, you know, anyone who's seen our product, our entrances, and kudos to you for pretty much full creativity of those, our entrances at HQ, when, you know, RIP HQ, when we could wrestle there, were incredible. And thanks to the sound and lighting guys, Dane, Brad, for doing an incredible job of that. I think that really helped.
Absolutely, legends for getting that organised.
Yeah, dude, I think people just appreciated that effort. And then after that, it was just entertainment. In the wrestling, they just started cheering more and more. And then that Antivirus match, I think, was when the switch flipped. I remember talking to Chris Basso about it, saying, look, when are you going to turn us face? And he said, I'm not. The crowd are going to do it. And then the crowd did it. And eventually I just started wrestling heels, and then it just kept going. You know?
Yeah. We were able to just do it naturally. And we knew that if the crowd was going to turn on us, we were going to go with the flow. And I think a lot of guys get caught up in not reacting to the crowd in that situation. I know that we have our heels and faces, but feel the crowd in that moment. You don't go into business for yourself, but you also like, okay, this is where it's going. This is how I feel that it's going. Crowd is booing me. Crowd is cheering me, or they're not saying anything at all. You know, if you want that realistic perspective, that's the only way to do it. Otherwise, it feels like you're ignoring the crowd. You know, they're not even there. And as a manager, I've learned that a lot, to obviously listen to the crowd and get them how to react. If they're telling me to F off, then I'm looking back at them and going, you know, what the hell, mate? Or I'm trying to antagonize them a bit more. Or if they're cheering you on or cheering me on, you go with it. You get the crowd. You slap the ring apron. You tell them, you know, come on, let's get going. The crowd is such a huge part of what we do. What's it like now to watch the product on TV, whether it's WWE, AEW, if you've had a chance to actually take a bit of a gander at what they're doing with no crowd, it's eerie to me.
It is. But I mean, being someone who's been in the ring versus just only a fan, I can only appreciate some of the really good stuff I see. And WWE have pulled out, in particular. I haven't watched much AEW. I haven't even watched that much WWE because without a crowd, I've got this. A lot of people say once you get in the ring, you lose your ability to be a fan. But I think having a 4-year break brought that back, and I don't know. I feel like I've got a really good sense of breaking wrestler to fan. And when I'm watching, like, let's talk about WrestleMania for a second. Whether the show should have gone on or not, that's a discussion and argument for everyone else. It happened and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into that, but I thought some of the things they did, especially that Boneyard match, was incredible. They took the ball and ran with it. But then there's a lot of stuff they've done which I've thought, oh, guys, just give it up. You know what I mean? I've been so mixed about it. It's just not the same not having 100,000 screaming fans. It's not the same hearing the crowd going, ooh, ah. But at the same time, from a wrestling standpoint, I can really appreciate the work that a lot of those wrestlers are putting in to still be the same and still act the same and adjust how they work with the camera even more because there's no crowd. It's weird, man. It's great in a way. It's horrible in a way. I don't really know how to explain how I feel about it. I've watched a bit of it. I haven't watched a lot of it. I haven't watched any more of it or less of it, whether it was a crowd or not, put it that way. So at the same time, my fanness has been the same regardless. It's just weird. It's weird but cool. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some positives and negatives to come out of this. I mean, obviously you want to look more at the positive side of things. Like you said, they're able to work the camera a bit more. Maybe get a bit better on their interviews as well. But having that, what's that?
I said that's been a big thing, the storytelling and how they've had segments with the microphone and stuff like that. It's been a bit different, which I've liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've enjoyed that too. I've enjoyed where the guys are able to, have that opportunity, just them and a camera. To me, some of the best interviews have just been, give me a camera, I'll talk. I don't need a guy holding a stick. As much as I appreciate the great, stick guys in the business, it's one of those things where there's nothing that beats a camera and a guy's face and they're just talking and they're real and they're legit and they're passionate. Someone like Edge, who has been fantastic. Say what you want about his match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania. Someone like Edge, since he's come back, it's like, yeah, that's how you're supposed to do it. That real emotion, tying it in with, real life situations and able to bring it back to the storyline. I think it's absolutely great. Undertaker, seeing him come back as the biker, one of my favorite characters that got me into wrestling. But I guess the big negative is, and it's what you touched on a little bit earlier, how Chris Basso said that the crowd is going to turn you babyface. These guys aren't getting that now.
Yeah, they got nothing to feed off, man.
They don't.
But I think maybe one thing, and I might be wrong because I'm not behind the scenes there, but one thing I feel like maybe Vince has done, I may be completely wrong, but of what I've seen, the one thing I feel like what he's done, which maybe allowed them to alleviate that a little bit, is I feel like the guys have a lot more creative control at the moment.
Yeah.
That's my gut feel. Just with some of the promos I've heard and stuff like that. Again, I haven't watched enough to really say, but of what I've seen, I feel like that Undertaker AJ Styles match. I read some things about it, and I don't know what to believe or not, but I just felt like it was them. I felt like, yeah, maybe there was some suggestions, but I felt like, the way you and I and Ben and Havoc had our control, I feel like they had their control, and I feel like that's helping fill that void a little bit rather than being so stagnant. And maybe this will be a turning point for their creative moving forward again. Because, you hear about back in the day, Stone Cold and Austin and stuff like that could just go, hey, can I have a chance to do this? And then they get the creative control. They've earned that trust. Chris Jericho, things like that. Maybe this will bring that back a bit, Maybe. We'll see. That's just what I feel. I
think the business is going to change a lot coming out of this. It already has. You're going to see a lot of more cinematic wrestling. Like, I know a lot of people will point to what Matt Hardy was doing with the final deletion. I touch a lot of this on Sean. Again, I was a huge fan of the Boneyard match. Sean wasn't. I can see the reasons why. He feels like they didn't go all out with it. If they're going to be that crazy, they should have gone more. They should have pushed it to the limits. A big thing with us is that we're able to look at that and go, you know what, balls to the wall when we do these things. If we're going to do a HQ entrance where I come out as a lion, we're gonna do it. Yeah, lift us up. And while we're on that too, that first few times when we started changing the gimmick around a little bit, when we started calling each other Team SAS-C, funny story with this, and mate, repping it forever, man.
And for those who don't know, South African superstar and the C for Jimmy C.
Yes, that's a lot of people did ask me what does SAS-C mean. It works out that you are SAS, you are SAS, and we did. I did a promo to actually explain, like, you know, this is what Team SAS-C means. I'd already done it and I'd posted it, but I said, hey, do you reckon this is a good idea? And you said, yeah, it's a great idea. And I'm just like, yeah, we're kind of doing it.
Was that the one with the cutting pictures and stuff?
Yeah, that art, mate.
So good. I remember, man, the one where you were before that, where you're like, there was a picture of a giraffe and a person. You had a little arrow saying possibly Steve. I lost it, man. I was in tears. This was like 10 o'clock at night. I had no idea you were doing this promo, or I might have, but I didn't know when it was getting released. You did it, and I lost it. And that's when I was at that point where I was like, yeah, I'm going to break away from my character, but I kind of want to, you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
Oh, man.
You're in that character limbo, because you don't want to lose what you've got, because you feel like you've built that up, but you also want to change. And if you change too drastically, people might, you might go back the other way completely. So you don't
Exactly, man. But the thing, hat off to Chris Basso. He helped me out with a lot of this, and he preaches it a lot. Training is about, look at Stone Cold, for example.
Yeah.
When he did that promo that, created Austin 316, he just went for it. You know what I mean? There's plenty of guys that have done that have just gone, you know what, I'm going to go left the field. But then you got guys like Brodus Clay, who became the Funkasaurus or whatever it was, and it was, in my opinion, horrible. So you've just got to give it a shot. Drew McIntyre he was the chosen one, young babyface guy, became 3MB. He was funny for a while, left, and now look at it. You need those massive, like, balls to the wall, let's just go for it type transformations to either make it then, or you will fail miserably, and that will test who you are, and then you'll come back stronger later.
Sometimes you need to go completely the other way to get you back where you need to be. And maybe like in Drew McIntyre's case, walk away from WWE, come back as someone completely different.
Yeah.
That helped.
Sorry, you go on.
I was going to say that helped. I think that helped him out a lot. Obviously, he's the WWE champion right now. For you to, because you were out of the wrestling business for quite some time. Yeah. What was the decision that you made to get you out of that situation? Like, were you leaving on bad terms? Were you optimistic about ever coming back? Like, what was sort of your thinking at the time when you left for that first time?
Well, I could give you a long story or a shorter story.
Maybe got all day.
Let's go for a medium story. So I started at Riot City and I ventured out to Wrestle Rampage now for a while. And then I ended up back at Riot City, but I'll ignore all that part. Well, not ignore it. It's just a long story. But I think for me, the biggest thing was the time I was in my life I was going through. My mental health wasn't the best. And, I was sort of trying to work out who I was in life a little bit. I was finishing my uni degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved wrestling, but it felt stale and things didn't feel like they were really ticking their boxes for me. And I got in my head, like when I first started wrestling, I'm sure like most people, they have this aspiration and dream that they want to make it big time. And around that same time, I realized that I don't want to make it big time. I want to do what I do here, but I want to do other things in my life. I'm not sure what they are, but I'll work them out. And I think what happened was I got so confused in my head about what I really wanted out of wrestling. And I didn't see it as something I could do for fun. It was all or nothing for me. And maybe it was the environment. I don't even think it was the environment at the time, honestly, man. I think it was just me. And I decided to originally take 6 months off, finish my uni degree and all that. And then things steamrolled in my personal life in the sense of, I became a PT. I started working out of another gym, and then it grew into having my own gym and all that sort of stuff. And I went in another direction. And for me, in the back of my mind, all I really remembered in wrestling was that when I left, my mindset wasn't right around wrestling. And I had a pretty negative viewpoint of it all. Although there was a lot of good shit as well. But I think that when I left, I was so lost in general that I made up in my head that wrestling was lost, if that makes sense. So then for me, I just remembered the bad shit. But there was, now when I'm back and it's awesome, there was so much good stuff, man. So many good times and memories and mates I've made and things like that. It just wasn't the best way out, I suppose. But I had to get out. I felt like I couldn't break away from that. I got too involved with politics in my head, things like that. And then Del Torino, who is pretty much my best mate outside of wrestling, was taking trainings on Fridays and things like that. And he said, hey, why don't you just come down for a roll? And my whole mindset was around wrestling was, I'll never come back. I'll never come back. I just love being a fan. I'll never come back. But deep down, I knew I wanted to go back because I missed entertaining and I missed expressing myself and I missed the camaraderie and the payoffs. And I felt like I had so much more I could do, and I still do. I still feel like I'm very new to the game, even though I've sort of been around for a while. There was a big break in the middle. And I said to him, nah. He's like, come on, man, let's come for fun. You can come have fun. And he was one of the few guys that was a testament to, he'd been around for a while and he'd done some things, probably over 10 years, but he didn't want to make it, but he was still having heaps of fun with it. And he was still doing really well. So I thought, you know what, I'll come down to a training. Came down to a training, came down to another training. And, I was nervous because I hadn't been in a ring for 4 weeks. I remember that, after the first training, I couldn't even eat because I couldn't move my jaw because from a bump and my neck was so sore. But I think it was about a month later, I had my first match, and then it just steamrolled from there. But yeah, to cut this off a little bit, when I left, my mindset wasn't good. So the whole time I had such a bad mindset about wrestling because all I remembered was the bad stuff, but there was so much good stuff too. I just couldn't see it at the time because in general, I was confused. I was 23, I think, or 22. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yep. And I'm feeling that now, man. Like I'm your age that you were then. I'm 23 myself, and it's weighing up. Independent wrestling in Australia, not a lot of people are making a living off of. That's pretty much like the situation we're all in. And you feel for everyone now going through what's happening with COVID-19. There's no one literally that's making a living off this. So my heart goes out to those guys who really stuck it and gave it their all, and now they're sort of left up in the air. But for you at the time to have the maturity level to walk away because you knew that it wasn't all well up here and you lost it in here. So for you to walk away at the time, it's you look back on it now as the best thing you've done in wrestling, to be able to walk away and remove yourself from a bad situation, because it's not good for anyone. It's not good for anyone, like you said. If you're around, you're giving them bad vibes, and they're projecting onto you that your head's not in the game, and it just makes you feel like shit.
And to be honest, man, it wasn't wrestling necessarily doing that. I don't want people to take that away from this. It was me in general. I felt like that with a lot of things in life at the time. And wrestling was just, you have to commit. You can't half-ass this. You see a lot of people over the years, they do their trial, they get in and they come to one training every 3 or 4 weeks, but it's just not going to happen. You've got to have some level of commitment. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not in, so I've got to get out. Before I start burning bridges, I'm not that sort of guy. Before I start, hurting myself or hurting, God forbid, other people because my head's not in it, that's not good for anybody. So I had to step away. My lasting memories weren't great, but now when I reflect, man, everything is awesome. I did a lot of shit, a lot of good stuff. I had the likes, obviously Chris and Matt Basso training me, but I also had the guys you see in WWE now, Bronson Reed and Brendan Fink were two of the main guys that took me under their wing. Now those guys have gone and freaking soared. Damian Slater over at EPW in Perth, he's had a stint in WWE as well. When I was at Rampage, he trained me for like a year, and it was basically just me and him half the time. I had some awesome experiences.
Some of the best that Australia's produced, helping you along.
Yeah. I mean, I even had Buddy Murphy throw me out of a Rumble once. I mean, that's my claim to fame. But, the reality is the way it was at the end, it's like I didn't even appreciate any of that. And I hope those guys know I did. And, guys like Chris and Matt now, man, when 2020, this is years later, they took me back with open arms, man. And now they're helping me go to another level along with other guys. those guys, if anyone, have been stuck around since day one. If I've come, they've been there. Do you know what I mean? So
What's a few guys right now that you're training with at the moment that you see as like potential? Let's just not limit it to WWE. Let's just say that could go out, once this is all said and done with, they can go out and make a name for themselves on the indie scene, international, whether it's New Japan, Ring of Honor, AEW. Who's a few guys that you see right now that could have that potential that you're training with?
I think anyone has the potential who puts in my opinion. But if I had to name a few, so I wanted to pre-frame it by saying that, because I don't want to name a few guys and then I forget someone and everyone that puts the work in. I mean, you've seen some of the craziest things happen. I mean, freaking Gilbert has made a name for himself. You know what I mean? James Ellsworth. Look at them.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Looks to deceive.
Yeah, right. I think some of the standouts, and man, it's been a while since I've been around everyone, so I hope I don't forget him. Like Kurt Barron's definitely one of them, or Barron now. Just he to be able to be so athletic at that size, probably one of the tallest and biggest guys in Australian wrestling. He turns heads, that's for sure. I think his biggest thing is, and I'm sure we all have this, is he's got to probably believe in himself a little bit more, and I definitely think he's going to get to places. Put himself out there some more, and I know he's been working on that. Obviously pre-COVID. Matt Hayter's another one, man. He's young. I didn't realize how young he was. He's charisma. If you don't look past your initial impression of him, I think he's a big asshole on earth. But he's actually a real good-hearted dude. And
I went to school with the kid, like primary
really?
school and high school. Man, he was a cocky MF.
Has he always been like that?
What was that? Sorry.
Has he always been like he is?
He always has been like that, man. Like, we used to go over each other's houses and watch wrestling pay-per-views around about 05, 06. And then when he started getting into PWSA, then known as Snake Pit at the time, it was something that we always wanted to do as kids. So to see him and how far along he's come, body transformation-wise as well, He used to be, a little bit pudgy with the short hair. Now he's leaned down a bit. He's got a long hair. Totally different kid, but he's kept that same personality. He's a year younger than me. So, like you said, I definitely see potential in him. And he has no fear. He has no fear. He's not above going out there and, flashing himself, and let's put it that way. Keep it a little bit PG, but he's not above, going out there and, just leaving it, not to all the imagination.
I think it's hard to say. There's plenty of guys with potential, man. There's also, maybe I'll switch this question up a little bit, because otherwise I'll just sort of start blowing smoke up people's asses or forget someone and then they'll cry to me about it. I don't know.
Feeling certain wrestling? Nah.
There's definitely a lot of guys who, if they were maybe a little, I don't know if young is the right word, or if it was a bit earlier in their life and they didn't have the sort of career and family things they have now, they probably could definitely, with the way wrestling is now, make a huge name for themselves. Because when they were peaking, and I'm not saying they're not peaking now because they're still awesome, but if they were, I don't know, if it was another time, they could definitely have gone there. Guys definitely like Chris Basso.
Yeah.
And I don't know his story, so I don't want to speak out of turn or anything like that. Zach Sabbath's another one. Again, I don't know his story. I don't know what their aspirations were, what they wanted to do, things like that. So I don't want to speak out of turn. But if you were just to purely say who could have made it at some point, I feel like those two guys, they definitely could, I don't know, maybe they didn't want to, again, I don't know, man, but those guys, they're on another level as well. Rocky Monero too, his look alone, man, his look alone.
And we've had the pleasure of sharing a locker room with all those guys. What's some of the best advice that you were given from, let's use those guys as an example, like a Rocky Monero, a Zach Sabbath, or a Chris Basso, that you still believe is true today, and something that you would pass on to other people that are getting into the business, or they're not even too sure, about themselves if they want to, keep this going? What would you say is the best advice that you've been given that you can pass down now, since you've had, a few years under your belt as well?
Don't be shit.
I love it.
No. I don't know word for word, man, but I think the biggest thing I got was when I first got debuted onto a show, it said, I think it was, who was it? Might have even been Matt Basso. I think pretty much said, don't get an ego now. And it's actually, if you take that another way, in life in general, and I read this in a book I'm reading at the moment, the people who make it the furthest are sort of the people who can appreciate where they are, but they don't feel like they've started. Conor McGregor talks about that as well. He feels like he hasn't even done anything, so he's still got that mindset of working. But if you look back, look how much he's achieved. And the reality is I think if you want to keep working, keep learning, keep growing, don't ever feel like you've made it, and appreciate and be happy with how far you are going. I think you know, you'll be the one who keeps going, and you won't rub people the wrong way necessarily. And that's sort of what I took out of the whole don't get an ego now, because you see it all the time. You see it
all the time.
Guys, they bust their ass off four trainings a week to get on a show. They get on their first show and then they stop training, stop rocking up, think that's it. It's like, well, you're not going to get anywhere now.
No. That's the easy part.
Yeah, and I think that's it. The don't be shit one's a bit of an in joke, I suppose. It's all about working on your 1%ers, and the other thing is always keep working on your basics, you know, things like that. I don't really know, man. I mean, the main piece of advice I got given was the ego one, and I think that ruins a lot of people. They get a bit of limelight, and that could have happened to us, man. We started getting pops in that, and we just kept thinking of other ways to do it rather than thinking we're done now. And you see it all the time.
Ourselves grounded though at the same time, because we
have
respect each other to say, hey, look, you know, this could all end like that. You never know.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
And we were really starting to rock and roll towards the end of February, when we just had the Fringe. You know, pack that place, pack that Peacock tent. We were in the main event, 8-man tag. It seems like months ago. Like, when I say months, I mean like almost to a year. That was only a few weeks ago, which is very weird. When things come back, because they will, you have to hold out hope that they will, and RCW boots back up again and life goes back to a new normal, whatever that is.
Yeah.
What is your main goal, not just in wrestling, but in life, when this all starts to boot back up? Start off with wrestling. When you want to get back into RCW, what are you looking to get out of it, man? Because we talked about it as well, but like, you know, what else is there left for you to do?
To be honest, man, there's goals I want to tick off in wrestling. I want to have this, and I want to do that, and I want to be on this show. But I want to go aside from that. And this is actually something that we've just touched on, about the whole all or nothing type attitude and my bad mindset when I left, as well as something I wanted to talk to you about in general, but we haven't had the chance. So this is going to be the first, and this is how raw and authentic this will be. When we stopped wrestling, I was sort of going into that title picture a little bit, and I started going into the mindset of overthinking things again, getting too involved up here again, and trying too hard again in here. And I think my main goal for wrestling is a hobby of mine. I'm only going to train once a week, maybe twice, I don't know, but I'm very real with, I'm going to train this much and I'm going to get this good at it because of that, and I'm going to put this much. I'm very like level-minded. I don't know what the right word is, but I'm very level-headed. I'm very level-headed with, I'm going to get out of it what I put into it, and I know where that is, and I know what I want out of it. And aside for the goals of, one day I want to be Riot City champ, or one day I want to wrestle interstate and whatever. I just want to always be at that place where I'm having a good time with my mates. I'm improving at the level I can improve with the amount of effort I'm putting in. People want to see me wrestle, so I'm not making a mockery of the product. You know, things like that. And that's my goal with wrestling, man. I just want to keep, and I think this is something I was going to talk to you about, is I want to get back to that. I started thinking way too much about it, and it started becoming a chore. And once it starts becoming a chore, then that bad mindset stuff could creep back in. And I'm very aware of that. And I won't let that happen, man. No. I think back when you had the best time wrestling was when we were just being ourselves and going with it. As soon as things like started, getting great momentum, it's great. But, I think the thing for me is I lost sight of just being us again. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like you probably felt the same as well. We talked about this a little bit.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I felt like we had gotten to a point where, all right, we're starting to turn heads a little bit here. Like, can we keep this momentum going? And I guess it's when they start to put a label on it. like, oh, hey, now we have these plans for you. It's like, oh, okay, that's extra added pressure. Look, me and you, I think we could safely say we do thrive under pressure, but we do get in our own heads a lot. So it's hard for us to, when we sink our teeth into something, it's hard for us to, ungrip it, if that makes sense. I was feeling like, okay, we've done this, how can we do it better? We're very much like-minded in the sense of like, all right, we've done this, and it goes back to the managed at first sight thing. Like we were gonna, truth be told, we were gonna fall back on that and do another managed at first sight sort of thing. But it's like, okay, well, do we do this again? Like we've already done this before, with the new season building back up on telly, so we can sort of play off that. Like, how do we do it? And when you start thinking of that sort of stuff in wrestling, that's when it becomes like, okay, there's this bit, there's this bit, there's this bit. And if it becomes too much, like you said, it feels like a chore.
Yeah, man. And I think as well, like we actually sort of did turn a leaf in the sense of sort of breaking out of that mold a little bit again and getting back to just what SAS-C was about, and then COVID-19 came. So I think the break I'm over it now, but it is what it is. And I think when we come back, I think the main thing is, man, other than, getting back in the ring and getting the rust off and getting a couple matches under my belt again, let's not even talk about bucket list items, man, because everyone's got those. Let's talk about mindset around wrestling. And that for me, having fun, knowing what I'm going to get out of it, putting in what I know I'm going to put in to get out what I know I'm going to get out, as long as it's not disrespecting the product, which I don't feel it is, and what I mean by that is guys who just wrestle and don't have any idea and don't train or anything like that, but it is what it is. Just having a good time with you guys, man, and making the other guy look good, and we roll with it, things like that. And being safe, I just having a good overall mindset. And whenever I've had that mindset around something in life or wrestling in general, that's when I've achieved the most. So it's like you try and you put effort in, but you don't try too hard.
Yeah, exactly. You don't try and get in your own head too much, because then it doesn't become fun anymore. And a lot of people lose sight of that. Yeah, it's a business, but it's like anything. If you're not having fun, you're not passionate about it. Even when money is involved, it's hard to get enjoyment out of it, and it's hard to invest in it when it starts to just become work. Let's talk about something fun though. Let's talk about the stuff that we did as far as entrances. We touched on it a little bit before, how we did the Lion King entrance. When we were planning all this stuff, initially, okay, we done the managed at first sight stuff, so we got the promos down pat. For you, how important was it to look at the picture of the whole product, like the whole presentation, and me pitching these ideas to you, and you not, I built up a good rapport with you for the managed at first sight stuff, but now we were starting to, become, closer as mates and, really start to work. So when we were doing those entrances, were you like, okay, this is a bit too crazy? Like, okay, I'm not too sure if this is going to work, because we've done Lion King, we've done a singer that sung Toto Africa to the ring. Oh, the bongos, all of it. How important is that to you in the whole grand scheme of things? Like all these little bits and pieces that make it work.
Man, it sets the precedent.
Yeah.
There was maybe only one other team that did sort of entrances like this, but they sort of did the same thing all the time. And we had and there's no disrespect to that. We had the opportunity to do something. We just had an unlimited window of creative control and opportunity. We could do anything. We were like the New Day, if you want to compare it to WWE. They were like, cool, we trust Jimmy, like from the higher ups, and I was trusting you, and you would come to me, and I was at that point where I was like, yeah, let's do it. And you'd go to them and they'd be like, sweet. So we'd come out and we just set the tone of the match, because that would be our match.
Yeah, it would be. And that was my philosophy on it too. If people could come out remembering that, I remember when we did the first Lion King thing, then it's like, okay, they remembered something that we did. Like if that's all they take away, like, and you didn't have to take a bump to be able to do that. And then that's when I think we both started working a lot smarter, in the sense of like, we can limit what we do as long as we make everything that we do look as good as possible. And I think that's what people lose sight of. Again, I've only been in the ring once, and I will leave that to judgment on anyone's, if someone wants to pick that apart. But to me though, when I watch something, I don't look for, okay, how many moves have you done? I look at what moves have you done and how did you get the most out of that? Is that sort of the philosophy that you've taken on as well?
Yeah, that's something that definitely rolling it back a bit to when I felt like my psychology went from here to here with that match with Kurt Barron.
Mhm.
It really put in place doing things for a reason, not just doing things because it's cool. Whether it's entrance, match, promo, whatever. And we've probably done a few moves or promos or things that didn't really need to be done. And you've got to learn that. And you're always going to do that. That's it. But that really doing things for a reason, not just cause, that started shifting it for me. And I've got so far to go with that. And I feel like that's where it started beginning, was the entrances. We're like, okay, cool. This is why we're doing them. And this is what we're getting out of them. And then what can I do in the match? And then what can you change in the match to do this because of this, not just cause. And that's the whole building block and levels and everything. And the entrances, man, I don't really know. I just think that was our little WrestleMania in the show, that entrance.
It definitely was, yeah.
That was our moment. Yeah,
it was
we had some that did better than others, but at the end of the day, it's sort of what people started expecting from us.
My outlook was, okay, we do one show a month. What can we do each time to make it different? What's something that you always wanted to do? And I know that we've spoken about it, but there's one particular entrance that we want to do. I don't know if you want to keep it a secret or because
I don't know if it's my COVID-19 brain, but why can't I remember it? If it's something we've always wanted to do.
It's got something to do with something that we both like. And we have debated on which ones. Well, we haven't debated, but you're clearly this to my.
Yeah, I got you.
You got me? Yeah.
Is there a lot of black involved?
What's that?
Is there a lot of black involved?
There is a lot of black involved. It's pretty dark.
Yeah, it is. I think it would be awesome, man. We could talk about it. I mean, who's really going to...
Yeah, why not? Why not? So we wanted to do a Batman and Robin entrance.
For those who don't know, I'm an avid Dark Knight fan.
Mm-hmm.
Avid. And I'm sure you are as well.
Mate, love me some Batman. I debated with Sean who the best Batman was. Personally, when I was growing up, it was Val Kilmer from Batman Forever. You probably have something completely different.
Christian Bale, man. I don't know. It's just the Dark Knight series. Incredible. The music, the everything. I don't know. It's probably a little bit typical, but whatever. People can think what they want.
Mate, well, great set of movies. And that's the thing that I found that we can talk about other than stuff than wrestling. Like, we were able to, obviously with Batman, we wanted to incorporate a lot of what we do into wrestling to make it fun for us. If it makes sense, then it makes sense. And doing things for a purpose. But if we get that opportunity to do that, we're gonna really take a hold of that.
Look, honestly, man, I think that's one thing we've got to do going back into wrestling when this is all over. Amongst with the mindset stuff I was talking about, I think we've got to stop overthinking what we're doing, and I think we've got to just go back to July through December 2019, Team SAS-C, and take each month as it is, and just do what we do. And I think that'll take us where we want to go. And it's something I wanted to talk to you about. I think we got to stop trying to preempt as much as we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, screw it. First show back, let's do Batman and Robin.
Dude, let's do it. I'm keen as, man. I want to come. I'm already starting to get. I'm going to order the Batmobile. I'm going to order the pole we can slide down on.
I've got a Dark Knight costume already.
Yes, mate. All I need to do with the Robin, am I going to do classic 60s Robin?
Yeah, well, because you kind of have to. There's no real Robin in the Dark Knight. There is, but no real iconic costume, unless you came out as a police officer. But
I'll get my Speedos on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be great, man. I mean, we've already seen you in your Speedos, so we'll need some Speedos with spandex.
Yeah, we did. Someone commented on my they said my bum. I won't say who it was, but they said my bum usually looks good, but it didn't come out well in the Speedos.
No. That's ruthless, man.
I was thinking to someone, well, my one moment,
Actually, on that, I haven't actually replied to him, but Matt Hayter seems to think he's got the best booty at Riot City, but I beg to differ.
Nah, mate, you've got some junk in the trunk.
I think Barron as well. I mean, Barron is also up there too. That's
a foot booty right there.
What's that?
That's some 7-foot booty right there.
Yeah, boy. No, man. Yeah, Batman and Robin. Let's do it. I mean, why not? I mean, that's who we are.
Oh, definitely. That it's a part of our personality that we can incorporate into wrestling. And I think when we can mesh those two worlds together, it makes it so much more fun, man. What's been I guess to sort of tie this up, what has been your best memory of? It can be a Team SAS-C memory. that you've gotten out of wrestling? Is there something you look back on, it's like, I wouldn't change a thing about that?
Man, there's heaps, and definitely a lot of the Team SAS-C stuff. There's so many, man. But something that's always stuck with me that I'm really proud of personally is when I did the Wrestle Rampage tryouts. So it's not really a wrestling in the ring type memory, but those tryouts, and apparently I was one of the last people to do their infamous tryouts. And I don't know if you know much about them, but I know a few of the boys at Riot City know about it. It was just like 2 days of torture, 2 days of absolute torture. And the whole thing was they wanted to break you and they wanted to see if you'd give up. And I didn't, so I wrestled there. And I remember my first training was 500 or 1,000 squats or something, and I couldn't do it. So basically I had two guys either side of me just doing it with me. And the whole training was just that, because training didn't start until that got done. And yes, I've had great memories, specific memories, like my match with Kurt Barron, definitely a highlight. The stuff we've done, definitely a highlight. Some of the stuff in the beginning, there were highlights. But that would be one of the 5 things that stood out from just in general, because that went so much further than just wrestling for me. That really helped develop my mindset with my training, with other things in life. That sort of bit more never give up type attitude, man. That for those listening, if they are that did that tryout, they'll be agreeing with me. It was brutal. Like when you have their guys, and I remember, and I won't say his name, but when you have one of their guys throw up at your tryout, that's just an indication of what you did. It was ridiculous. And that was huge for me, man. And we've talked a lot about the great memories we've had. So I thought, let's just choose something different. That's always stood out for me. And I'm talking pre-4 year off type memories, man. That was awesome.
And there's nothing that beats that first time when you're breaking into the business, when you first get started. You're never going to forget it.
Oh, man, I can remember my first workout was with Matt Basso. I'd never been to the gym before. Took me through a chest workout. I had in my tryout, I had a certain person, which I won't say now, pretty much going at me because I couldn't do 10 push-ups. I'd be surprised if they could do 2 now. But anyway, that's another story. Oh, there's heaps of those memories, man. Heaps of those. There's good in-ring memories. There's good outer-ring memories. There's good lessons we've learned as people. There's everything, man. I could talk for hours about this stuff.
Okay, we have to do another follow-up interview, man. I think this is just part 1 of many that we're going to do, because we have a lot of stuff to cover. Quickly, though, I'll do a couple of rapid fire. Someone you idolized growing up in the business?
Kane? Yeah. Man, his aura was incredible. Couldn't get my eyes off him.
Someone that you looked at as, okay, you've got Kane. Someone that you looked at as a future tag partner. Who would you like to team with?
You mean like
if you looked at wrestling, someone that you'd like to team with and that you could have a match with, like a dream tag partner and dream wrestling opponent.
I've never thought of this, Jimmy. I've actually never thought.
Got to put you on the spot, man. This is rap fire.
The Rock.
The Rock.
Who wouldn't want to team with the Rock, man? Guys are charismatic.
He's stolen your move.
Yeah, exactly. He stole my move. I use his foot.
That rock bottom. He called that rock bottom the blood diamond. Yeah.
It's actually the blood diamond. He called it the rock bottom.
Pass it down to the kid. He's doing well for himself.
That's it.
So dream opponent, and he'd be your dream tag partner as well.
So he wouldn't be my dream opponent. I don't really know, man. Shit, I never think about this stuff. I'm not one of those guys.
Yeah.
I could tell you someone in Australian wrestling I really want to wrestle.
Go for it.
Ryan Eagles. He's a mate of mine over in Sydney. I'm trying to get him over here so we can wrestle. He actually doesn't wrestle anymore, and he said he would if he could come here and wrestle me. And I'm sure there's a few other guys who'd love to wrestle. I'd love to wrestle it.
Beautiful, mate. Look, like I said, we could talk for hours. We could we have a lot to still talk about. We're going to do a follow up on this, but mate, thanks for joining us today, man. C section part 2.
By the way, thoughts on bringing back the original Miller time from when I first started?
I think we're good. All right. If we're going to do that, I have to do it like this. I have to do a C. Boom. Have to do it like that. Yeah, that's that. Because I'm going to bring this back. I don't do this as much. I was actually watching a lot of my original promos. Every single second sentence is a C pun.
Can we do the Miller time and also do a promo with Miller beer in it?
Yes. Dude, I don't know why they haven't sponsored you yet.
I don't know why we haven't done that yet either. Like where you go.
Miller, anyone from Miller Beer if you're listening.
No, well, the beer is Miller Chill, right? So like I'm getting real feisty, and you're like, dude, Miller, just chill, and you pass me a Miller Chill. It just makes sense. It writes itself. Why haven't we done that?
It can be the new OK Boomer.
That's it.
It can be.
No,
Chill. You're not you when you're thirsty.
No. Yeah, Miller Chill.
Miller Chill. I love it. This is a lot of what people don't see. These are ideas that may sound like absolute nonsense at the time. Give us a couple more, discussions about it. We pick it up and be like, that can actually work.
What do we got now? We got Batman, we got Robin, we got Miller Chill, we got the Seaman, we got the Miller Trill, like an OK Boomer type.
We've got 2 years worth of t-shirts.
Yeah, we got heaps.
That's what it's all about. Which, by the way, mate, we've got to start, actually moving these ones. So
we should start selling deodorant with SAS-C on them.
Yes, very, very, very soon. This shirt will be available to purchase online.
I saw a really popular deodorant brand stole our logo.
I did too. It's like that kid The Rock. He stole the blood diamond, and now everyone just wants a piece of Team SAS-C.
Yeah, no, that's the impression.
That's exactly right. It's also available in white, a dry version.
Yeah. That's it. Oh, and also, do you have your version where you ripped it?
Oh, you know what? That's another thing. I have not been able to track that down. I don't know what happened. I've got the wrist tape from the match. This is the tag match with Ben and Benjamin Rosenthal and Benjamin Rosenthal, I should say. I was stuffed up this name for months, but I did it on purpose. Now I can't stop saying it. Benjamin Rosenthal and Havoc that I have the wrist tape for still.
There you go. I don't know why you've got that. Do you sleep with it at night?
Oh, always under my pillow. It's good luck.
That's it.
It's good luck. I remember.
Watch out. I've got a whole nother new set of gear coming in for our return as well. Not to mention I just got new gear anyway. So
yes.
I've got quite a lot of stuff to showcase.
Good, mate. This is the stuff people need to be doing to capitalize on the time. If you've got the money, if you've got the time to be able to come back bigger, better, badder. Team SAS-C all the way.
Yeah,
That's
baby. SAS-C, baby.
That's what we're about, mate. That's what we're all about. Miller the Killer, Steve-O from Team SAS-C. Thank you for joining us, brother. I'm going to catch up with you very soon. Wish you all the best with what's going on at the moment. Hopefully that we can do this actually in person.
And have a beer.
Have some Miller. Some Miller.
Yeah, Miller. Yeah. All right, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, dude. Stay safe.